Namo Buddhaya and welcome to the Dhammapada series. In this episode, we will explore another two verses of the Dhammapada that reveal the eternal law of love and forgiveness. These teachings remind us that hatred can never be conquered by hatred, and they guide us toward a life of peace and harmony. The Buddha speaks in chapter 1, verses 5 and 6 of the Dhammapada. In this world, never is enmity appeased by hatred. Enmity is ever appeased by love. This is the law eternal. And the Buddha continues further. The many who know not this also forget that in this world we shall one day die. They do not restrain themselves, but those who recognize the law end their quarrels soon. These verses reveal a profound truth about human conflict and its resolution. In the first verse, the Buddha teaches that hatred cannot be overcome by more hatred. When we respond to anger with anger, we fuel the flames of enmity, ensuring they burn brighter. But when we respond with love and compassion, we extinguish these flames. Love is the antidote to hatred. It is a timeless and universal truth, the law eternal. The second verse expands on this by contrasting two types of people. Those who do not understand this eternal law become trapped in anger and conflict. They forget the impermanence of life, that one day they too shall die, and waste precious time in quarrels. But those who do recognize this truth are quick to end their disputes. They understand that holding on to anger harms not just others but also themselves, and they choose the path of reconciliation and peace. Let me share with you a story that beautifully illustrates the contrast between the two paths described in these verses. In a small village, two neighboring families lived side by side. Over time, their relationship soured due to a dispute over a piece of land. One family claimed the land as theirs, while the other argued it belonged to them. The quarrel grew bitter, with insults exchanged and accusations hurled across the boundary line. The head of the first family, driven by anger and a desire for revenge, decided to take matters into his own controls. One night, he crept into the neighbor's field and destroyed their crops. The next morning, when the second family discovered the damage, their rage knew no bounds. Fueled by hatred, they plotted retaliation. The cycle of harm continued, with each family trying to outdo the others in acts of vengeance. The feud grew so fierce that it began to divide the village. Each act of hatred only deepened the enmity between the two families and brought suffering to everyone around them. One day, the Buddha came to village and heard about the feud. He invited both families to meet him under a large tree in the village square. Addressing them, he said, "Hatred is like a fire. When you add fuel to it, it grows stronger, consuming everything in its path. But what happens when you stop feeding the fire?" One of the villagers replied, "It dies out." The Buddha nodded and continued. In the same way, enmity is never appeased by retaliation. It is only through love and forgiveness that hatred can be extinguished. He then told a parable about two merchants who resolved a bitter conflict by choosing to forgive rather than retaliate. Inspired by the Buddha's words, the younger members of the families began to question the purpose of their feud. Slowly, they convinced their elders to sit together and listen to each other's grievances. The families eventually agreed to resolve their conflict peacefully, each recognizing that their hatred was only causing mutual suffering. From that day on, the two families worked together to rebuild the harm caused by their feud. The village, once divided, became united in harmony. This story highlights the two contrasting paths described in the verses. In the first path, the families held on to hatred, seeking revenge for every perceived wrong. This only deepened their suffering and prolonged their quarrel. In the second path, they chose to recognize the wisdom of love and forgiveness, ending their enmity and finding peace. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that while hatred may feel justified, it is love and restraint that bring true resolution. So how can we apply this wisdom in our daily lives? The first step that Buddha proposes is pause before reacting. When someone wrongs you, take a deep breath and pause. Ask yourself, will responding with anger improve the situation or will it make things worse? This simple pause creates space for a more thoughtful and compassionate response. The second step is to practice empathy. Try to see the situation from the other person's perspective. Often, anger comes from pain or misunderstanding. For example, if a colleague snaps at you, consider that they may be under stress. Respond with kindness instead of escalating the conflict. The third step is to recognize life's impermanence. Reflect on the Buddha's reminder that life is fleeting. Ask yourself, is this conflict worth my time and energy? When you acknowledge the impermanence of life, it becomes easier to let go of trivial disputes and focus on what truly matters. Another step that Buddha suggests is to use loving kindness meditation, also known as metta. Spend a few moments each day silently repeating, "May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful." This practice trains your mind to approach others with compassion, even in challenging situations. The Buddha's teachings remind us that love is not just a response to hatred, it is the cure. When we choose love over anger, we break the cycle of enmity and create a path to peace. As you reflect on these verses, consider, how can I respond to conflict with compassion today? What quarrels can I let go to find greater peace? Each time we choose love, we honor the eternal law and bring ourselves closer to harmony. The path may not be easy, but it is the only way to lasting peace. Thank you for joining Buddha's sunshine on this journey through the teachings of the Dhammapada. Until the next time, may your heart be full of love and may your thoughts guide you toward peace and joy. Stay blessed.